true Appalachian horror stories that are actually real. There are places deep in the Smoky Mountains where the fog hangs in the valleys like a second skin, and the old stories feel a little too real, as much a part of the landscape as the rocks and the river. Tonight, we're heading back to the 19th century to explore the legend stories of bitter spirits and ancient things that some say still wander these isolated hollers. These aren't just ghost stories, they're a part of Appalachia's haunted soul, the Bell Witch haunting. Our first story is maybe the most infamous in all of American folklore. It's a case so well documented that it's given rise to the legend that it's the only instance in U.S. history where a spirit was blamed for a person's death. This is the story of the Bell Witch. It all started back in 1804 when a farmer named John Bell moved his family to a big piece of land in Robertson County, Tennessee. For more than 10 years, they were living the American frontier dream. They were respected, they worked hard, and they were successful. But in the late summer of 1817, that dream started to sour into a full-blown nightmare. At first, it was small things. John Bell was out checking his cornfield when he saw a strange creature he swore had the body of a dog and the head of a rabbit. He shot at it, and it just vanished into thin air. Not long after, the weirdness moved into their house. It started with quiet knocking and scratching sounds on the walls, but it got bolder. Soon, the family heard what sounded like chains being dragged across the floorboards, gnawing sounds at their bedposts, and stones being thrown against the cabin. Then, the entity focused on the children, especially the youngest daughter, Betsy. An invisible force would yank the sheets right off her bed, then pinch and slap her, leaving red welts and handprints on her skin. The family was terrified and, frankly, embarrassed. They tried to keep it all a secret. But as the attacks got worse, they finally broke down and told a neighbor. They invited him over to see it for himself, and it turned out the haunting seemed to enjoy an audience. It didn't take long for it to find its voice. At first, a rasping whisper, which then grew into a clear, intelligent voice. It could hold conversations, sing hymns, and even quote parts of sermons that had been delivered miles away, word for word. The spirit claimed to be the witch of a local woman, Kate Batts, who held a grudge against John Bell over a land deal. The entity, which everyone started calling Kate or the Bell Witch, swore it was here for revenge. It became something of a local celebrity. People came from all over to hear the talking phantom. Legend even says a young Andrew Jackson tried to visit, but was supposedly chased off the property by the spirit's terrifying power. For the Bell family, though, this wasn't exciting. It was torture. The witch had a special hatred for John Bell, calling him Old Jack and promising over and over again that it would kill him. It also tormented Betsy about her engagement to a local man named Joshua Gardner, vowing it would never let them get married. The non-stop abuse, both mental and physical, wore the family down. John Bell's health started to crumble. He began having seizures and strange spells as the witch's voice relentlessly taunted him, counting down the days to his death. Then, in December of 1820, John Bell died after a violent illness. Next to his bed, the family found a small vial filled with a mysterious black liquid. The witch's voice was heard, booming through the house, triumphantly proclaiming, "I gave old Jack a big dose of that last night, which fixed him." When the family tested the strange liquid on their cat, it reportedly died almost instantly. John Bell's death has since gone down in folklore as a death caused by the supernatural. After John died, the witch's activity calmed down. It got what it wanted by breaking up Betsy's engagement, and in 1821, It announced it was leaving, but promised to return in 7 years. According to the legend, it did come back for a short visit in 1828, before promising to return one last time in 107 years, in the year 1935. To this day, the area around the Old Bell Farm in Adams, Tennessee, is considered deeply haunted, a place where the echo of a vengeful spirit is said to linger in the very soil. But not every Appalachian horror stays locked inside a single farmhouse. Sometimes, the terror takes to the sky. Our next story takes us from a haunted home in Tennessee to West Virginia, where a different kind of fear grabbed hold of an entire town. This creature wasn't a disembodied voice. It was a physical thing that many came to see as a harbinger of a terrible disaster. This is the tale of the Mothman of Point Pleasant. For 13 months, from November 1966 to December 1967, the town of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, was in the grip of some truly bizarre and scary sightings. It kicked off on November 15, 1966. 2 young couples were driving late at night near an old, abandoned TNT plant from World War II. As they came around a curve, their headlights landed on something that made them slam on the brakes. Standing there was a figure the size of a man, but it was no man. It was dark, maybe 6 or 7 feet tall, with huge wings folded against its back. But the worst part? Its eyes. 2 massive, glowing red eyes that stared out of the darkness. Terrified, the couple sped off, but the creature shot up into the air and chased them. They later claimed they hit speeds over 100 miles per hour, but this winged thing kept up easily, swooping down over their car before it finally broke off as they tore into town. They went straight to the police. The deputy sheriff thought it was a joke at first, but he followed them back to the site and found nothing. Still, he knew these couples, and he knew they weren't the type to make up a story this wild. Once their story hit the local paper, the press gave the creature its name, the Mothman. And that's when the floodgates opened. More and more reports started pouring in. Over the next year, dozens of people claimed to have seen it. The descriptions were all eerily similar. A big, winged humanoid with glowing red eyes. Some people saw it perched on top of buildings. Others saw it flying low over the Ohio River. One man claimed his dog vanished right after he shined a flashlight at 2 red eyes glowing in his backyard. The creature seemed especially drawn to the Silver Bridge, the big suspension bridge connecting Point Pleasant to Ohio. The sightings also came with other strange events, UFO reports, weird humming noises, and even alleged visits from mysterious men in black who supposedly warned people to stop talking about what they'd seen. The town was on edge for more than a year. The sightings seemed to build to a peak, and then they just stopped. Then, on December 15th, 1967, 1 year and 1 month to the day of that first major sighting, tragedy struck. During evening rush hour, the Silver Bridge was jammed with cars. Without any warning, a single tiny fracture in a critical piece of the suspension chain gave way. In less than a minute, the entire bridge twisted and collapsed into the freezing Ohio River. 46 people lost their lives. After the disaster, the Mothman was never seen in Point Pleasant again. This created the legend that endures today. Was the Mothman a monster that somehow caused the collapse? Or was it some kind of terrifying angel, trying to warn people about the doom that was coming? The official cause was a mechanical failure, but for many who lived through that year of fear, the collapse of the Silver Bridge and the glowing red eyes of the Mothman will always be connected. But not all of Appalachia's horrors are winged messengers or bitter spirits. Some legends talk about something much, much older, something tied to the land itself. They're whispers of a people who lived in the shadows before history as we know it was even written. The moon-eyed people. When the first European settlers started pushing into the remote mountains of what we now call North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee, they started hearing strange stories from the Cherokee people. The Cherokee told them about a mysterious race that had lived in the region long before they had. They called them the moon-eyed people. According to the legends passed down for generations, these weren't ghosts, but flesh and blood people. They were described as having pale white skin, beards, and light-colored eyes, features completely alien to the native tribes. But what really set them apart was their eyes. They couldn't see in the daylight. The stories say they were blinded by the sun, so they lived their lives at night, coming out of caves and hidden underground homes only after dark to hunt and to build. The Cherokee legends often talk about a great war. They say that when their ancestors first moved into the Appalachian highlands, they found these strange nocturnal people already living there. One version of the story claims the Cherokee took advantage of their weakness, launching a final, decisive attack on a night with a bright full moon. This attack supposedly drove the moon-eyed people out of the mountains for good, forcing them to flee west. For a long time, most people wrote this off as simple folklore, but there are some real, physical mysteries in these mountains that keep the legend alive. In places like Fort Mountain in Georgia, you can find ancient stone walls and forts that predate the Cherokee. Their origins are a total mystery. Cherokee legend, however, has an answer. These are the walls the moon-eyed people built at night to protect themselves. So who were they? Theories have been floating around for centuries. One popular idea connects them to a Welsh legend about a prince named Madoc, who supposedly sailed to America in the 1100s, hundreds of years before Columbus. Could the moon-eyed people have been the descendants of these lost Welsh sailors? Or maybe they were an indigenous group with a rare genetic condition that made them sensitive to light. We'll probably never know for sure. The story of the moon-eyed people remains one of Appalachia's deepest mysteries, a haunting tale of a lost race that lived and fought in the darkness of the ancient mountains, leaving behind nothing but whispers and stone ruins. The mountains keep their secrets close. These stories, handed down from one generation to the next, are just a few of the tales that echo through the hollers and hide in the fog. If you have your own stories from these hills, a tale your own grandparents told you, I'd love to hear it. Share it in the comments below. I really do read everyone. And if you want to journey deeper into this country's most haunted corners, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories from the shadows. From the bitter spirit of Kate Bats to the terrifying Mothman and the ancient mystery of a nocturnal race, the folklore of Appalachia is woven from a thread of truth. It's born from the deep woods, the isolation, and that unshakable feeling that in these old mountains, you're never really alone. These stories remind us that some things aren't meant to be fully understood. They're meant to be told, to be listened to, and most of all, to be respected. Because in Appalachia, the past is never dead. It's not even past. Thank you for watching Fear Files Real Nightmares. Until next time, keep your lights on and your doors locked.